G'day, in this video I'm going to bust 4 myths about lithium batteries that get bandied around all the time. Number 1, let's get straight into it with how charged they are when you first get them. I see this all the time. People buy a brand new lithium battery, take it away with them and expect it to run their fridge for an entire weekend. Well, when it doesn't run their fridge, they get pretty upset, claiming it must be a low quality battery or that it has a fault. Well, no, the truth is, in order to comply with UN 38.3 standards, lithium batteries must be shipped with around 30% charge. So if you've got a brand new lithium iron phosphate battery, you should charge it before you use it to get the most out of it. Of course, you could use it with its 30% capacity, but just know it's not going to run for as long. Number 2, BMS cutoff or sleep mode. Now this is related to point 1 in that if you discharge your battery too far, below about 10 volts, the BMS will actually go to sleep or disconnect the cells from the output terminals. So if you do put a multimeter or voltmeter on the terminals, you'll only see about 2 or 3 volts. This doesn't necessarily mean there's a problem with your battery, but it might mean there's a problem with your 12 volt system. The BMS cutting power to the terminals is intentional to protect the cells in your battery, and it doesn't just happen when you over discharge the battery. It'll also happen if you put too high a voltage into the battery, if you put too much current into the battery or there's a short circuit, or if you use the battery outside of a preset operating temperature range. So it's designed to protect the whole battery and your system. What can you do about it if it happens? Well, there's an easy way to reset your BMS. But it's a manual process, and that's on purpose so that it doesn't automatically reconnect if there's a problem with your system. It forces you to physically and visually check that your battery is safe and ready to restart. There are multiple ways to do it. An easy one is to use a jump starter. You could also use a pair of jumper cables and connect another battery to your battery, or you could connect some chargers that have a lithium wake feature. Then once your battery is started up, particularly if you've fully discharged it, remember that it's going to need a very good charge back up before you start to run things like your camping fridge. Number 3 is weight. A lithium iron phosphate cell can achieve around 150 watt hours per kilo. So 10 kilos would give you 1500 watt hours. That equates to about a 120 amp hour 12 volt battery. Now if you see a battery that's too light, don't automatically assume that it's low quality or missing something. And if you see a battery that's heavy, don't assume that it's got bigger capacity or better quality. The only way to know is to buy from a trusted seller or to do a full capacity test. Unlike lead acid AGM batteries, where more lead means more weight but means more capacity, lithium is a much lighter material, but it still needs to be within the realms of possibility. So if a lithium cell can achieve around 150 watt hours per kilo, a 120 amp hour cell would be about 10 kilos, you've still got to factor in the other components like the case, the BMS, the internal bracing, and of course the wiring. So you're looking at about 12 kilos per 120 amp hour battery. If the lithium battery has a more reactive chemistry, like lithium cobalt oxide or lithium nickel manganese cobalt oxide, sure, you might get a lighter battery, but you're missing out on the safety and stability of a lithium iron phosphate battery. So when you're doing your research, make sure you're checking that it's the right type of lithium. Next up, last but not least, is comparing lithium voltage to state of charge. Now in the past, I've talked about the fact that a lithium iron phosphate battery, while charging, is 100% charged at around 14.6 volts. But this can be a little bit confusing if the battery's not on charge or if you're using the battery at the same time. So let's look at the voltage range of a typical lithium iron phosphate battery. Generally, they'll run from about 10 volts to 14.6 volts. But the big difference between 99% charged and 100% charged is that you'll see about a 13.6 to 14.6 volt increase. So there's a whole volt for just 1% of capacity. Once you take the battery off charge or start using it, the voltage will drop quite quickly, but it doesn't mean it's not nearly fully charged. Here's a graph to demonstrate. This is the difference between charging voltage and resting voltage. A lithium iron phosphate battery at rest, at full charge, will be around 13.2 volts. And this can happen over a short period or pretty quickly if you've used a bit of power out of the battery. That's taking off what's called the surface charge, which is basically the elevated voltage of the battery when it's just come off a charger. On the other side, as it's discharging, the voltage curve is different again. It starts at around 13.6 volts, then rapidly drops to 13.2 volts once you've used that little bit of power out of the battery. But from there to about 20% of battery capacity remaining, the voltage barely changes. It might drop down to around 12.8 volts, and then all of a sudden, near 20%, it'll drop to 12 volts, and then 10 volts by 0%. So it can be really difficult to tell the state of charge of a lithium iron phosphate battery, whether you're charging, discharging, or even if the battery is at rest. The easiest and most accurate way is to use a battery monitor with a shunt that actually measures the amount of amp hours going into the battery and then coming out of the battery to give you a really accurate idea of the percentage that your battery's at. There you go, 4 common myths that make lithium batteries seem much more confusing than they really are. If you're still interested or want to learn more, make sure you check out my full lithium battery masterclass video series.